Hi everyone, in today's lesson we're going to look at solving problems with decimals. This is a non-calculator lesson, so let's jump into our first example. Lucas is helping his parents buy food for a bank holiday family barbecue. He hands the cashier a £20 note to pay for a pack of beef burgers costing £6.75 and a bag of charcoal costing £4.90. How much change should he bring home? So this is a decimal question. We want to add the costs that he's going to incur together and then take that away from the £20 note, and that'll give us how much change he's got. Let's go ahead and do 6.75 add 4.90 together. Just notice I've lined up my decimal points so that I can add these together without making a mistake. So 5 add 0 is 5, 7 add 9 is 16. I need to carry over my 1. 6 and 4 is 10, and another 1 is 11. Put down my decimal point. So the beef burgers and the charcoal cost him £11.65, and he paid with the £20 note. So we want to figure out what's left over. So we'll take the £20 note, we'll put down some zeros, and then we'll take away the £11.65 that he has left over. So in order to do the subtraction, I'm going to have to do some exchanging. I'm going to exchange one of my 10s for 10 units. But I need to continue to exchange, so I'm going to exchange one of my units for 10 tenths, and I'm going to exchange one of my tenths for 10 hundredths. That then allows me to go ahead and do this calculation. So 10 subtract 5 is 5, 9 subtract 6 is 3, 9 subtract 1 is 8, and 1 subtract 1 is of course 0. So I can now go ahead and answer the question, how much change should he bring home? Well, the answer is £8.35. Pause the video and give this question a go, and then your answer will be up on screen in a second. Your answer should have been £13.97. Alright, let's look at our next example, which is a little bit more tricky. Daniel, Emily, and Sarah are harvesting apples from an orchard. Together they gather a total of 23.59 kilograms of apples. Daniel gathers 9.43 kilograms. Emily gathers 4.23 kilograms less than Daniel. How much does Sarah gather? Let's start with what Daniel gathers. He gathers 9.43 kilograms. Now, Emily gathers 4.23 kilograms less. That doesn't mean Emily gathers 4.23 kilograms, but she's going to be 4.23 less than what Daniel gathered. So when we see less in mathematics, that means we need to subtract. Let's take how much Daniel gathered, which was the 9.43, and to work out what Emily gathered, we need to take away 4.23. 3 subtract 3 is 0, 4 subtract 2 is 2, and 9 subtract 4 is 5. What we can then say is that Daniel gathered 9.43 kilograms, and then we just worked out what Emily gathered. She gathered 5.20 kilograms. And what's left to find out is how much Sarah gathers. And to do that, we're going to use the fact that they gathered 23.59 kilograms together. All three of them got that. What I'll do is I'll take Emily's and Daniel's gatherings, so that's Daniel at 9.43 and Emily at 5.20, and add them together and then take that away from the total. So let's go ahead and add that together really quickly. Okay, that gives me 14.63. Then what I can do is I can take the total, which is 23.59, and subtract our 14.63 that's already been gathered. 9 subtract 3 is 6. 5 subtract 6 I cannot do, so I'm going to exchange and bring across 10 tenths. 15 subtract 6 is 9. 2 subtract 4, again I can't do that, so I'm going to need to exchange from the tens column, and I'll bring across 10 units. I can then do 12 subtract 4 to give me 8, and 1 subtract 1 to give me 0. So we know that Sarah gathered 8.96 kilograms. Pause the video and give this question a go, and then we'll run through your answer in a second. Alright, let's go through it. Abigail, Miriam, and Esther have saved a total of £35.80 to buy a gift basket for their grandmother. Abigail contributes £14.75. Miriam contributes £3.50 less than Abigail. Remember, that doesn't mean she contributes £3.50. How much does Esther contribute? So the first thing I'm going to do is to work out how much Miriam contributed. And I know that she was £3.50 less than what Abigail contributed. So I'll take Abigail's contribution, and I'll subtract £3.50. That's going to give me how much Miriam contributed. So 5 subtract 0 is 5, 7 subtract 5 is 2, 4 subtract 3 is 1. And then I'm left with 1 in the tens column. What this number tells us is that Miriam contributed £11.25. The question then says, how much does Esther contribute? So let's list out who we've got so far. So we've got Abigail's contribution of £14.75. We've got Miriam's contribution of £11.25. And then the last person is Esther. And to work out what Esther got, we look at the total. So we know that in total they saved £35.80. So we're going to add up Abigail's and Miriam's and take that away from the total. Let's go ahead and do that off to the side. So add up Abigail and Miriam's. Together, 5 and 5 is 0, carry over your 1. 7 and 2 is 9, and another one is 10, carry over your 1 again. 4 and 1 is 5, add another one is 6, and 1 and 1 is 2. So that means is Abigail and Miriam contributed £26. We'll take our total of £35.80. We'll take away the contributions that have been given so far. So 0 subtract 0 is 0, 8 subtract 0 is 8. 5 subtract 6, we're not able to do that, so let's do some exchanging. 15 subtract 6 we can do to give us 9, and 2 subtract 2 is 0. That tells us that Esther contributed £9.80. If you wanted to check your answer, you'd add up Abigail, Miriam, and Esther's contributions, and it should give you a total of £35.80. Our next question is a perimeter question. It says, calculate the perimeter of the rectangle. And we need to understand that the perimeter is the distance around the outside of the object, which is different to the area. Area is the space that the object takes up, but we're not interested in that. We're interested in the distance around the outside. And to work out the distance around the outside, we're going to add up this side with this side. And then we need to know this side. Well, of course, it's going to be equal to the 16.7. Need to add that side up. And then we've got this last side, which is also going to be equal to 5.92 centimeters. Now, what I could do is I can add them all up individually, do 5.92, add 16.7, and so on, and add up the other two as well. Or what I could do is I could add the 16.7 and the 5.92 together, and then add that to itself. Let's do that. Let's take our 16.7, and we'll add on our 5.92. And we'll just make sure that our decimal points are lined up, which they are. 0 and 2 is 2. 7 and 9 is 16, carry over your 1. 1 and 6 is 7, and then add on your 5 to give you 12, carry over your 1, and then we've got 2 tens. What that means is this side, add this side, gives us 22.62 centimeters. And what we have is we have that calculation over again. There's no point redoing that calculation. I just know that I've got 22.62, and I've got 2 of these. So what you could do is you could multiply this decimal by 2, or what you could do is you could add 22.62 to itself. And that's what I'm going to do because this lesson's about addition of decimals mainly. Do that. 2 and 2 is 4, 6 and 6 is 12, carry over your 1, 2 and 2 is 4 with another 1 to give you 5, and 2 is 4. That's my answer. Just make sure you state your answer with the correct units. The perimeter is 45.24, and in this case, we're working in centimeters. Okay, pause the video and give this perimeter question a go. All right, let's run through it. Calculate the perimeter of the isosceles triangle. Now, an isosceles triangle is a triangle that has 2 sides that are equal. We can also see that indicated on the diagram for us. What that means is that this side is 3.05 meters. To work out the perimeter, I'm going to add up all of the sides. So let's take our 3.05 and add up the other 3.05. And while we're at it, why not add on the 4.17 whilst we're here? No problem having 3 numbers in your column subtraction if you're happy to do that. 5 and 5 is 10, and 7 is 17. Carry over your 1. 1 and 1 is 2, down your 2. 3 and 3 is 6, and 4 makes it to 10. To calculate the perimeter of the isosceles triangle, my answer is going to be 10.27, and in this case, our units are meters. Our next example requires a little bit of extra work. The perimeter of the triangle below is 41.3 meters. Find the length of the missing side. So to work out the missing side, I want to add both of these sides together and then take it away from the perimeter because that's the total of the 3 sides. Let's start off by adding together my 2 sides, 14.95 and 17.05. Very warm in the UK here today, so I think my pen's lagging a little bit. 5 and 5 is 10, carry over your 1. 1 and 9 is 10, carry over your 1 again. 1 and 4 is 5, and 7 gives us 12, carry over your 1. and then we've got 3 in the tens column. So this side and this side add together to give me 32. I know the perimeter of the triangle is 41.3, so I know that this side makes up whatever's left over when I do 41.3 subtract 32. So 41.3, I'll take away my 32. 0 subtract 0, 0, 3 subtract 0 is 3. 1 subtract 2, I can't do, so let's do some exchanging. Carry over 110 for 10 units. 11 subtract 2 is 9. And then 3 subtract 3 is 0. So that means this side should be 9.3 meters. Pause the video and give the question on the right hand side a go. And if you want to use a calculator to check your answer at the end, then that's okay. Just make sure you're using addition and subtraction without a calculator before that. All right, let's run through this question. The perimeter of the trapezium, and this is actually an isosceles trapezium because these two sides are the same, indicated by the lines on them. The perimeter of the trapezium is 59.66 centimeters. Find the length of the missing sides. So that's this side and this side. Now we know that these two sides are equal. And we know that whatever's left over when we take away 10.2, 25.46 from the total, if we divide that by 2, that will give us the length of one side. Let's start off by adding together the two sides that we've been given. So the 10.2 will add together the 25.46. We'll do 0 and 6 to give us 6, 2 and 4 to give us 6, 0 and 5 to give us 5, and 1 and 2 to give us 3. These two sides add up to 35.66. And what we can then do is take the total for our perimeter and subtract the 35.66. And we need to be careful to understand what that will give us. That will give us the total of this side and this side. We'll then obviously need to divide our answer by 2 to get one side. So I'll take my 59.66 and I'll subtract my 35.66. Now these tails line up nicely, so I know they're both going to go to 0. 9 subtract 5 is 4, and 5 subtract 3 is 2. So what I could then say is that 2 sides equals 24 centimeters, whatever's left over. And it says find the length of the missing side. So we want to know what one side's worth. Well, one side is going to be equal to 24 divided by 2, which is equal to 12 centimeters. That's my answer. Our next example is some column addition and column subtraction, but with some missing digits, and we've been asked to fill these in. Let's start it in our normal way. We'll start from the right-hand side, and we'll try and work our way through it and see how we do. So we're adding these numbers together. 9 and 4, well, that gives me 13, so I know that this must be a 3, and I would then have to carry over this 1. In my next place value column, whatever I've added together, I've ended up with a 2. Because I know I've started with an 8 here, I know I've went above 10, so I've went up to 12. When I consider that I've already got a 1, well, I've got a 1 and an 8, so I've got a 9, and I've added on something, and that must have taken me to 12. That then allows me to figure out what goes in this gap. Well, it should be a 3. I'll just quickly check to make sure that makes sense. 1 and 3 is 4, 4 and 8 is 12. That would give me my 2 down here, and I have to remember to carry over that 1. From here, it's fairly straightforward. I've got a 5 and a 1, so that gives me 6. And then I've done 6 add something to take me to 9, but it must have been a 3. Pause the video and give this quick question a go. Okay, let's start from the right-hand side as we normally would. This time we're subtracting, so let's be careful that we're doing that. 5 subtract 1, that's nice and straightforward, that's 4. In the next column, it appears like I've done 3 subtract something to give me 9. But what I should interpret this to mean is that I've not had a 3 here, but rather a 13. So whatever I've done, I've carried over a 1 to give me 13. This makes a lot more sense. 13 subtract 4 would give me 9, so I know that it must have been a 4 in this place. Now, if I've exchanged for a 1 in this column, it means I've actually taken away 1 from whatever was here in order to do the exchange. If we look at this column, we might be tempted to put 7 in this box because 7 subtract 7 would give me 0. But I have to remember that I exchanged from this column to bring 1 over. So it was 7, but it was 7 after the exchange. Therefore, it must have been 8 originally. Let's put that in and see if it works. So if I had 8 and I'd exchanged 1 and brought it across, then 7 subtract 7 would have given me 0. So I know that it was 8 originally. Let's just make sure that's nice and neat. And that's the answer you should have got. Let's look at our next example. The difference between two numbers is 4.15. One of the numbers is 7.03. What could the other number be? Give both possible answers. I know that one of my numbers was 7.3. And I know that the difference between the two numbers is 4.15. What that means is the other number could be smaller, 4.15 smaller than 7.03, or it could be 4.15 larger than 7.03. Smaller number and 7.03 would have a difference of 4.15, and the larger number and 7.03 would also have a difference of 4.15. In order to get both possibilities, I will have to do 7.03 subtract 4.15, and that will give me one of my answers. And to get the other answer, I'll do 7.03 add 4.15. Let's do both of those to get both our answers. Let's start with 7.03 subtract 4.15. 3 subtract 5 I cannot do, and I have nothing to exchange for in the tenths column. I'll go to my units column. I'll exchange 1 unit for 10 tenths. And I need to continue the exchanging, so I'll exchange one of my tenths for 10 hundredths. I can then go ahead and do the calculation. 13 subtract 5 is 8, 9 subtract 1 is also 8, and 6 subtract 4 is 2. On the lower end, my number could be 2.88, and that would have a difference of 4.15 from 7.03. That's my first answer. To get my second answer, I'll take 7.03 and I'll add on 4.15. So 3 and 5 is 8, 0 and 1 is 1, 7 and 4 is 11. The question says give both possible answers. My first answer I'm going to say is 2.88, forgot the decimal point. And the second answer is 11.18. Both of those numbers would have a difference of 4.15 relative to 7.03. Pause the video and give this question a go, and then both your answers will be on screen in a second. Okay, so your two answers were 5.66 and 10.38. Well done if you got that. There's only one exercise to complete in this lesson today, so go ahead and complete that, and thank you for watching this video.